Ta-da! Another lesson for free. So this time we're going to talk about how to change the feel of a drum beat without changing the actual beat itself. So what does that mean? So let's take a basic, simple drum beat. Let's like a rock or pop beat. So we're going to do eighth notes on the hi-hat, which is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and take 1 and 3 on the bass drum, 2 and 4 on the snare drum. So real basic. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4. Nothing wrong with that. Now let's say that's the right beat, right tempo, everything is cool, but it just doesn't feel right. So the drummer's job is not only responsible for the timing and the rhythms, but it's also responsible for the feel. By the way, it's not the drummer's job to keep time. It's everybody's job to keep time. So sometimes you have to kind of be the ringmaster and force people into submission as far as time goes. But if you're playing with players who are decent, you should be able to stretch out and play around with time, and you don't have to force feed it to them. But anyway, so here's the idea. So we've got the simple drum beat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play straight eighth notes, which means there's no accents, no quiet notes. All the notes are the same. Consistent. When I hit the snare drum, something I want to try to avoid is hitting the snare drum and the hi-hat louder. So we should have this. No matter how hard I hit that snare drum, I don't want it to affect my right hand. So we don't want this. It doesn't sound good unless that's what you're going for. Now, what we're going to do is let's change this up a bit feel-wise. So we're going to accent the downbeat, which is the 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if I'm doing eighth notes, I'll do it on my snare pad. Instead of 2 and 3 and 4 and, I'm going to accent the 1. The and is not going to be as loud. I'm using this whipping motion, which is called a molar stroke. You don't have to use that. That's just what I use. So 1 and 2 and 3. So the 1, 2, 3, and 4, the quarter note is accentuated. The ands are not. So it has a more of a driving sort of feel. So let's say you're playing straight eighth notes, it just sounds a little wimpy, or it's just not heavy enough, or whatever your band leader says, you can accent the 1. All right, so that would sound, instead of this, you get this. All right, so that's straight eighth notes, or downbeat. Changes the feel of it without necessarily changing the actual beat. Let's say that's still not the right feel to it. What I can do is I can accent the ands instead. So this time it's the opposite. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So what I do is I use a technique called the tap up. So a tap is a little tiny note. Tap up is tiny note, the big motion to the up, so that I can then use a big note. So I'm accenting the and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So that gives it what's called an upbeat feel. Upbeat is usually bouncy, happy. If you think of like a reggae beat or a ska beat, that would be your classic upbeat. So I'll do straight eighth notes to an upbeat feel. Now, this one's a little bit trickier, but it's the same motion. So, and then upbeat. So you could tell that feels different. So now what I'll do just to prove that the beat didn't change, the feeling is completely different, is I'll play straight to downbeat, and then straight to upbeat, back to straight. Same beat, 3 different feels. So depending on what your band leader wants, you might have to change it around. That also means that if you're playing, you got to be mindful that you're not accenting by accident, because it's going to change the feel. And the human brain does weird things. Wherever it hears an accent, it wants to make you think that that's the beginning of something, usually. So sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not so good. So here it goes. again. Now, another way you can do that instead of accenting, you can open up the hi-hat as another way. So you can do it on the downbeat or the upbeat. So downbeat or upbeat. You could also use the bell of the ride cymbal. I have this mute on it right now, so I'll use the mute as the cymbal, and I'll use the cymbal as the bell, so you can get the sound of it. So I'll do straight, nothing crazy, downbeat. Back to straight eighth notes, upbeat feel. So on and so on. So sometimes the beat itself is not wrong. Sometimes the tempo is not wrong. Sometimes just the feel is wrong. And those are the three main feels that you can do. You can do either straight, you can accent the downside, or you can accent the upside. I can't think of any more ways to play. So if you can mix and match all three of those, you have a lot of variety in your playing as far as feel goes. Anyway, that's a lesson for this week. Any questions, you let me know. All right, bye-bye.